6 months after Harold Keller's death, the familiar sound of sanding wheels and saws still echoed across the floor of Keller Meubelwerk, the family-run furniture workshop nestled in the heart of Augsburg. But the rhythm had changed. The machines still hummed, but the soul of the place, the man who had led it for 3 decades, was gone. As the final tool clicked into its mount and the machines came to rest, Sabine Keller reached over and powered down the last station. The silence that followed wasn't comforting, it was oppressive. October in Augsburg brought the kind of biting cold that crept in through wool and windows alike. But for Sabine, the chill wasn't just in the air. It had settled deep inside her since the day Harold died, her husband of 28 years, her business partner, her compass. "Frau Keller, do you need anything before I leave?" called Klaus, the company's oldest carpenter, carefully stowing his chisels in the canvas bag he'd used for 20 years. She forced a smile, one she had mastered over months of grief. "No, Klaus, go home, have a good evening." He hesitated for a second, like they all did now, like she might suddenly shatter under the weight of a single wrong word. With a respectful nod, he left. The heavy workshop door closed with a thud that seemed too final. Sabine returned to her office, where harsh fluorescent lights spilled across papers strewn in semi-organized chaos. Production layouts, supply invoices, and most glaringly, profit reports. The numbers stared back at her without empathy. The company was surviving, but barely. Keller Meubelwerk had made handcrafted German furniture for 3 generations. Harold had always handled growth and strategy, export negotiations, international partnerships. Sabine loved the craft, the wood, the exquisite finishing. But spreadsheets, foreign markets, and scaling frightened her like shadows she couldn't define. She leaned back in her chair and sighed. Then her gaze drifted to her laptop screen, where a notification blinked in the corner. New messages in the European Furniture Business Network group. Harold had joined this LinkedIn group years ago, back when networking still happened in hotel lobbies and convention halls. After his passing, she'd rarely checked it, but tonight, something compelled her to look. She clicked. The topic. Backhand index pointing right, exporting European handcrafted furniture to emerging markets. The comments section overflowed with business owners from all over Europe, discussing trade barriers, production costs, consumer preferences. Sabine skimmed half-heartedly until one comment stopped her. "As an importer established in Turkey for 15 years, I can say this. German quality is still revered here. Handcrafted German furniture is rare and precious in the Turkish market. I'm looking for long-term partners, not opportunists." Mehmet Özkan, CEO, Istanbul Premium Imports. Her eyes narrowed. She clicked on his profile. Mehmet Özkan, 35. Graduated from Istanbul University with honors in business administration. CEO for over a decade. Photos showed him in tailored suits at trade expos, standing beside cargo crates, giving interviews and shaking hands with high-profile clients. He looked professional, but what stood out was his tone, measured, polished, not pushy. Different. She didn't overthink it. Her fingers hovered for a moment, then danced across the keyboard. Sabine Keller, CEO, Keller Meubelwerk, Augsburg. Interesting insight, Mr. Özkan. We've been curious about expanding into Turkey for years, but never found a trustworthy fit. Might we exchange ideas? She didn't expect a reply that night, but it came within 2 hours. Frau Keller, what an honor. Your company's craftsmanship is exceptional. I've researched Keller Meubelwerk. Your legacy is exactly what Turkish markets are hungry for. Let's speak more. I'll send a private message with my contact information. I genuinely think we can do something extraordinary together. Her heart tripped over itself a bit, part excitement, part fear. Harold always told her, online charm is cheap, don't fall for it. But LinkedIn wasn't Tinder. This was professional, polished, real. The next morning, she received the message, and a proposal. "Dear Sabine," he began, "may I call you that? I stayed up late last night thinking about what we discussed. I believe there's enormous potential between our companies." He attached a market research file, a 47-page document titled Opportunity Analysis, Premium German Furniture in Turkish Urban Markets. Germany remains the standard for quality. Turkish buyers, especially in Istanbul, pay premiums for authenticity. I have 127 distribution points across Istanbul, Ankara, and Izmir. Here's my idea. An exclusive Keller product line for Turkey. We start with a $45,000 trial order. You maintain a 35% profit margin, significantly higher than domestic. If demand proves out, we scale. Can we schedule a video call this week? I prefer real conversations for serious ventures. The numbers were compelling. The research was impressively formatted. Colored graphs, competitive analysis, demand curves, projections. Too good to be ignored. Still, Sabine hesitated, so she called Thomas, her son. "Mom, this sounds too perfect," Thomas replied after she outlined the proposal. "You don't know this guy." "I do not know him either," she countered. "And look at the file, Thomas, if even 10% of this is accurate." "Okay, but let me at least dig into the company before you sign anything, please." "I'm not signing anything, it's just a call." But she was lying to both of them, the truth. It had been 6 long, gray months, and that email wasn't just a business opportunity, it was hope. When she clicked accept and scheduled the video meeting with Mehmet Oskan for Thursday at 8:00 p.m., she felt alive. They agreed to talk late so he'd be free after his team left for the day. A professional courtesy, he had said, "I want to give you my full attention." When the call connected, Sabine almost gasped. He looked exactly as he did in the photos. Sharp suit, confident smile, eyes that looked genuinely gentle. Behind him, through a panoramic office window, she thought she recognized the Bosphorus. "Sabine," he said warmly, "finally, it's so good to see you." His German was fluent, almost perfect, just a faint, exotic trace of accent. "I studied German for 8 years," he explained, "ever since I fell in love with its culture and its craftsmanship." They spoke for 2 hours. About furniture, about ambition, about grief. He shared how he lost his father young and took over the family business himself. He listened when she told him about losing Harold, about the weight of responsibility. "You're strong," Mehmet said softly. "I can see it in your eyes." It had been a long time since anyone said she was strong. Everyone just said, "Poor Sabine." Tonight, someone saw more. She hung up smiling for the first time in weeks. Tomorrow, they'd talk again. And she couldn't wait. For the first time in over half a year, Sabine Keller looked forward to something that wasn't a delivery schedule or supplier negotiation. Every Tuesday and Thursday at precisely 8:00 p.m., she turned off the workshop lights, left the spreadsheets behind, and waited at her laptop. On the screen, Mehmet Oskan, impeccably dressed, always smiling, with a crystal-clear backdrop of Istanbul's skyline twinkling in the distance. Each call began with a kind of courteous warmth that had become ritual. "How was your day, Sabine?" It was a small question, but Mehmet asked it as if he truly cared, not out of politeness, but with intention. Over time, she found herself looking forward to answering it. She told him about finishing a custom dining set for the Schmidts, how Klaus had joked it was too perfect to eat on. Somehow, Mehmet remembered every tiny detail from previous chats. "Klaus, the senior carpenter, right? Been with you almost 2 decades, he recalled on one call, his tone admiring. Sabine smiled, impressed by the attentiveness. "Exactly. Sometimes I swear he knows more about wood than I do." "I doubt that," Mehmet said with sincerity. "I see the passion when you speak about your craft, That's rare, Sabine. You're not just running a business, you're continuing an art form, a legacy. And it was true. For Sabine, each piece of Keller furniture was a silent tribute. To Harold, to their years of teamwork, to their family. As November passed, the calls shifted, gradually, almost imperceptibly, from firm to familiar, from professional to personal. Mehmet wasn't just a business associate anymore. He became a confidant. He spoke of his failed marriage, how his ex-wife never understood his devotion to legacy, to enterprise building. She said, "I loved my business more than her," he admitted. At the time, maybe she was right, but I've learned, success means nothing if you have no one to share it with. Sabine related to that loneliness far too well. "People think being a business owner is all power and money," she said one evening. "They don't realize it's mostly fear. Every choice we make affects not just us, but families, workers, entire teams." "You understand," Mehmet replied quietly. "Not many people do, not even close." By the start of December, they spoke more regularly. Not just business days, but weekends, late nights, moments in between tasks. It became a ritual, a comfort. Then came the research report. Just as promised, Mehmet sent a new document in early December. This one was even more extensive. 63 pages of pure data, polished visuals, and insights tailored explicitly to Keller Möbelwerk. Page 12. Comparative Valuation, Turkish Consumers' Perception of German Brands. Page 27. Projected Sales for Handcrafted Dining Sets, Istanbul, Ankara, and Izmir. Page 51. Sample storefront mock-ups featuring Keller Tuğ line. Sabine was stunned. "Mehmet, this must have cost a fortune to create," she said, flipping through the high-end presentation from her office. "Not a cost, an investment," he answered. "Real businesses demand real effort, and Sabine, I believe in this, in you." The report outlined astounding potential. $780,000 in first-year demand, scaling up to $2.1 million by year 3. Profit margins were significantly above levels they currently operated within Germany. She quickly shared it with Thomas. "Mom, this is impressive, I'll admit, but I'm still not convinced," her son said, cautious as ever. "I found their company's website, but it only went live 18 months ago." "Maybe they rebranded," she replied. "Possible, but I also contacted a German importer who's worked in Turkey 15 years. Never heard of Istanbul Premium Imports, or Mehmet Oskin." "Turkey's a big country, Thomas. I'm just saying slow down. I promise I'm not making any decisions, yet." But she already had. In her heart, she had crossed the bridge. Hope had crept in, and with it, the first tiny flickers of trust. Thursday, December 12. They spoke late into the night. So late that even Mehmet's charming bravado dimmed to something gentler, more vulnerable. "Sabine," he said quietly, "can I tell you something? That's not about business." She felt her stomach twist, not in fear but anticipation. "Yes. These months, our calls, they've become important to me, more than I expected. You're not just brilliant at what you do, you see people, you see me, and I find myself thinking about you at the oddest times." There was silence on the line, not awkward but heavy. I feel the same," Sabine admitted. "I didn't expect this either." "I know it's complicated," said Mehmet. "Different countries, different lives, but what if we just explore it? No labels, no pressure, just honest connection." Sabine didn't know how to describe her feelings, but she knew only this. When he spoke, she felt seen again, not as a widow or as a businesswoman navigating survival, but as Sabine, whole, desirable, capable, and alive. Later that week, flowers arrived at the factory, a bright bouquet of white lilies and soft pink roses. A card was tucked delicately among the stems. "To brighten your day and remind you how bright you already are. M." Maria raised an eyebrow when she saw them. "From Mr. Istanbul." Sabine smiled. He's thoughtful. And rich, don't forget rich. You don't like him. I don't trust what I can't see in person. But I have seen him, on video calls almost every night. Maria exhaled, holding back more skepticism. Just be careful, it feels very fast. Sabine knew it was more than fast, it was headlong. By mid-January, the connection between them had gone beyond routine. Mehmet remembered everything. The doctor's appointment she had mentioned in passing. Klaus's birthday at the workshop. Her preferred coffee shop in Augsburg. You have a brilliant mind, Sabine, he said once. Your husband was a lucky man, but now it's your time. Each word was validation Sabine hadn't realized she craved. Then came the proposal that changed everything. Sabine, I want to come to Germany. She blinked at the screen during their Tuesday evening call. To Germany. I want to see the factory, meet Klaus, understand your process. I want this to be real for our business and for us. You're serious, she whispered. I've never been more serious. I'm looking at flights now. I'll book a full week. Let's turn planning into partnership. When the call ended, Sabine sat in silence. Her cheeks flushed, her heart beat loud in her chest. He was coming, to her, to Augsburg. After 4 months of video calls, shared dreams, and late-night laughter, the man on the screen was stepping into her world. This was the beginning of something. Something bold. Something terrifying. Something real. The week leading up to Mehmet's arrival passed in a blur of planning, polishing, and a nervous hum Sabine hadn't felt since her wedding day. Every moment, every checklist item, was a step closer to fulfilling a dream that was no longer just about business. It was about companionship, hope. He was flying across continents just to meet her. At the factory, Sabine oversaw a flurry of subtle upgrades. A new coat of paint on the showroom walls, fresh signage, even a professional cleaning crew. It's important he sees we take presentation seriously, she told Klaus, who merely raised one shaggy eyebrow. Frau Keller, he said, folding his arms. Our quality never needed decoration to speak for itself. Sabine smiled, catching just a flicker of protectiveness in his face. But this wasn't just about furniture. For the first time since Harold's passing, someone was seeing her, choosing her. Even Thomas came down from Munich the weekend before Mehmet's arrival. She hoped he'd share her excitement, but instead, he showed up armed with worry. Mom, he said quietly over coffee at their kitchen table, I finally dug deeper into Istanbul Premium Imports. Yes, it's a registered company, but the address on their materials leads to a shared co-working space. That's odd. Maybe they downsized or haven't updated documents. He leaned closer. I also spoke with a German exporter who works regularly in Turkey. He says no one in his circle has ever heard of Mehmet Oskin. She crossed her arms, defensive. That doesn't mean he's not legitimate. Turkey's a big country. Maybe, but promise me, please, keep the company's finances separate. Don't sign anything until we can verify everything. I promise, Sabine said softly. But she was already juggling a secret. 15,000 euros had been transferred from her personal account to a joint one Mehmet had suggested. A symbolic gesture of good faith on both sides, he'd said. In Turkish business culture, he explained, mutual investment isn't just tradition, it's trust. The logic sounded airtight at the time, especially wrapped in his gentle voice that always knew exactly what to say. Now she wasn't so sure. Still, she pressed forward. The plan was set in motion. There was no turning back. Thursday, March 14, Munich Airport. Sabine arrived 2 hours early, her heart beating a manic rhythm beneath her new silk dress, the one Maria had called dangerously romantic. Around her neck hung the antique Turkish jewelry Mehmet had mailed 2 weeks prior. This necklace belonged to my German grandmother, his letter had said. She always told me to give it to a special woman who understands tradition, love, and strength. Others might find such gestures suspicious, but Sabine found them disarming, gentle, thoughtful, rare. So she waited at the arrival's gate, scanning every face. And then she saw him. Mehmet emerged from the crowd like someone who had stepped off a movie screen. Handsome, poised, smiling with open arms. "Sabine," he called, his voice rich and warm. She walked forward, trembling. The hug was long, his cologne subtle but expensive, his hands steady, reassuring. "You're even more beautiful in person," he whispered near her ear. "You're taller than on camera," she smiled, "and quicker. Couldn't wait to see you." On the drive back to Augsburg, he fawned over the landscape, praised her car, a BMW naturally, and asked about every landmark they passed. "I'm truly excited to see the magic behind your furniture," he said, laying a hand gently over hers on the gearshift. 4 months of video calls, and now you're real." At the Hotel Maximilian, Mehmet had already booked the executive suite, a sprawling space with a panoramic view and a separate office for serious business intent. He even invited her up to see it. "I want you to feel comfortable. This is your city." The suite looked like something out of an international design magazine. He opened a bottle of Dom Perignon 2010 that had been chilling on ice. "All this just to impress a small-town widow," Sabine teased. "No," he said, handing her a glass. "This is how I show someone she's worth the finest things." She blushed and they toasted. To new beginnings and the future together. Day 2, the factory tour. The next morning, Mehmet arrived at the workshop in a smart blazer and carrying an expensive leather briefcase. He greeted Klaus with formal German grace. "You must be the legendary Klaus. Sabines told me you're the soul of this place." Even the skeptical carpenter seemed lightly impressed. They toured the production lines, where Mehmet asked sharp questions about joinery, moisture retention in wood, varnish sourcing, enough to pass for someone who knew the industry intimately. He took photographs of the handcrafted pieces, always asking for permission first. "My clients in Turkey will want to see with their own eyes the German precision I've been praising." Later in Sabine's office, he opened that luxurious briefcase and began a presentation that looked like it belonged in a corporate boardroom. Glowing figures, delivery plans, sales forecasts. "We're projecting $67,000 for the initial order," he said, adjusting the laptop screen. "I had said 45, but after what I saw today, there's no doubt we can go higher." Sabine nearly gasped. It was more than 3 months' worth of ordinary revenue. "But there's one requirement," Mehmet continued. Sabine stiffened slightly. "I need to show my buyers that our partnership is solid," he said softly. "They're conservative. They want financial demonstration of mutual commitment. Your 15,000 euros plus my contribution will assure them." He slid a document across the desk, a printed banking form. "I transferred 30,000 euros to our shared account this morning, so we now have 45,000 euros deposited." Sabine stared at the paperwork, stunned. Official letterhead, balance totals. "But Mehmet, you've invested twice as much as I have." He smiled, placing a reassuring hand over hers. "Because I believe twice as much, and because it's not just business, Sabine, it's us." That night, new doubts. That evening, they visited 3 long-time Keller customers. Mehmet charmed each one, praising furniture quality, sniffing aged wood appreciatively, asking personal stories behind design requests. His charisma was addictive. Back at their candlelit dinner, he made a more intimate proposal. "Sabine," he whispered at the table, "when I first contacted you, you were a potential supplier, nothing more, but now I see a life partner." Her heart thudded in her chest. "It's early, I know," he continued, spinning his wine glass softly. But when I talk to you, I see a future, not just of deals, but mornings, homes, maybe even love if you're open to it. That night, he walked her to her house, and for the first time since Harold passed, another man crossed the threshold. Nothing happened, only soft conversation on the living room couch, some old film on the TV, and the comfort of knowing someone else was there. When Sabine fell asleep beside him on that same sofa, curled beneath a blanket she and Harold once shared, she wondered, could this really be happening? Friday, March 15 began with quiet warmth. When Sabine came downstairs in her robe, still bleary-eyed from a peaceful sleep, she found Mehmet already in the kitchen, setting the table. A vibrant bouquet of tulips sat in a vase. Next to them, steamed bread rolls, apricot jam, butter, and a small wrapped box. "You cook too," she said with a smile, pushing her messy hair back. "I learned from my German grandmother," he replied, pulling out her chair. "Strong coffee, soft bread, and something sweet for someone who deserves all three." "What's in the box?" "Open it." Inside was a slender silver ring, not glittery or flamboyant, but elegant with a small blue stone the color of the sea. Traditional Turkish design, dignified, ethereal. "It's called a Sir's Yuzugu, a promise ring," Mehmet said. "In my culture, it symbolizes serious intentions, no pressure, just a step towards something honest and lasting." Sabine blinked, overcome. No one had given her anything like this since Harold. "It's beautiful. It's for you." He reached out and slid the ring onto her right ring finger. It fit perfectly, almost too perfectly. Later that morning, the pair returned to the Keller office. Mehmet carried a neat stack of documents in one hand and that same leather briefcase in the other. Inside was everything. Contracts in both German and Turkish, delivery schedules, format specs, cost breakdowns, and the finalized sales agreement. The one that outlined the official $67,000 order. Even Klaus, known for his stoicism and unshakable skepticism, seemed awed. He turned to Sabine and raised his coffee mug. "Well, if this doesn't work, it's not the paperwork's fault." They laughed, but not everything felt light. When they reached the financial clause, Mehmet paused. "One final detail," he said carefully, "to protect the order from delays." Sabine's eyes followed his finger to a paragraph at the bottom of page 4. "To satisfy Turkish customs law and warehousing contracts, a final confirmation transfer of $30,000 is required." Sabine looked up. "Why does this need to happen now?" "Turkish financial law for foreign transactions. It's heavy on display. Importers are asked to show liquid capital before goods move. It's ridiculous, I know, but it's regulation." Mehmet handed her a separate document from a Turkish logistics firm detailing handling fees and warehousing terms. It looked legitimate. Still, she hesitated. Couldn't it just be deducted from the first payment? "No," Mehmet replied smoothly. "This is a pre-clearance requirement. If we delay, the clients may pull the order. I put up my side. That 30,000 euros is already in our joint account. This final piece proves to everyone that this partnership is real." Sabine nodded slowly. He had already done so much, and hadn't he offered to double her investment weeks ago? "All right, I'll make the transfer this afternoon." She turned to her laptop. Mehmet leaned in and kissed her hand. "You won't regret this, I promise." At 2:00 p.m., she opened the Keller Company account and authorized the transfer. 30,000 euros to the same joint account. Confirmation appeared seconds later on her screen. "Done," she said. Mehmet hugged her tightly. "Sabine, now we're truly in business." But at 4:00 p.m., her phone rang. It was Thomas. "Mom, I need to talk to you, now, alone." "Thomas, I'm with Mehmet. Can we talk later?" "No, please, it's urgent about him." Sabine excused herself and stepped out onto the factory's back patio. "What is it?" she asked, trying to manage the rising unease in her chest. "I hired a pie," Thomas said. "I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner, but I needed facts." Sabine stopped breathing for a beat. "Mehmet's company is a shell," he continued. "Registered 14 months ago to a virtual office address in Istanbul. They've never imported German furniture. You must have the wrong company. And he has multiple aliases. There are records of him using similar names tied to online fraud cases in Munich, Frankfurt, even Vienna." Sabine's lips went dry. "Thomas, he showed me bank documents, signed contracts, he invested. Have you confirmed anything with your own bank, or did you just take his word for it?" "Lie." "Exactly, silence. Please, Mom, don't make another transfer. I'm driving to Augsburg now. I'll be there in 2 hours." Sabine hung up and stared at the gravel beneath her heels. Her breath came shallow. Her hands trembled. Back inside, Mehmet was chatting casually with Klaus, flipping through a book on 17th century woodworking. He looked up with that same warm smile. "All okay?" he asked. "Yes," she said automatically. "Just Thomas, business worries." "Understandable." He reached out like always, a tender gesture. This time she flinched. That evening, after dinner, she decided to probe him. "Mehmet, could I see your 30,000 euros transfer document again? I want to archive it with the final contracts." "Of course," he said, handing her the same paper as before. She studied it more closely this time. Something felt off. There, right above the transaction date, March 21st. But it was Wednesday, March 13th, when he first showed it to her over dinner. How could a transfer on the 21st appear on a document earlier? Her stomach sank. She looked up. "Which bank did you use again?" "Turkish Bankası Beşiktaş branch," he said quickly. But it was vague. Turkey's biggest bank had over 100 branches in Istanbul alone. She had looked them up during her research. "Do you always use that one?" It's close to my office." Still vague. Her instinct screamed, asked to see his banking app. "Could I borrow your phone for a second?" she asked, her voice calm. "I want to send Maria some pictures from earlier." Without a moment's hesitation, he handed it to her. Too quickly. Sabine opened the phone and looked for the Iş Bankası app. Nothing. No mobile banking. No Turkish financial apps at all. Nothing showing communication with clients, logos from logistics firms, or anything resembling a working business platform. Her throat tightened. "Where's your banking app?" "I don't keep it on this phone," he replied. "Business security reasons, I use a separate device." "And where is that device?" she asked. "At the hotel," he said. "Didn't think I'd need it for dinner." In theory, reasonable. In truth, excuse stacked upon excuse. As they spoke, Sabine heard a car roll into the driveway. Thomas had arrived. Mehmet turned toward the sound. "Your son." She nodded. "Wonderful. I've been looking forward to meeting him." Moments later, Thomas walked through the front door carrying a shoulder bag. He offered a polite but cold handshake. "Good evening, Mr. Oskin," he said. "Do you have identification on you, passport or official records?" Mehmet blinked, caught off guard for the first time. "Excuse me. We're about to enter a high-stake business contract. Basic due diligence. Mom, will you support this?" Sabine hesitated, then nodded. After a moment, Mehmet retrieved his passport from his briefcase and handed it over. Turkish, with his face and information. Thomas inspected it. "This was issued 8 months ago," he noted. "And what about ID from your time studying in Germany?" "Temporary visa. I'm not a permanent resident." Thomas locked eyes with him. "And what about bank account credentials? I'd like to see confirmation that the 30,000 euros you claim to have transferred is real. Mehmet didn't flinch. I can log in from the hotel. Better Wi-Fi, more secure. I'll show you both tomorrow. Or, Thomas said firmly, we can go there now. A long pause. Mehmet looked between them. Sabine's hesitation, Thomas's resolve. Finally, he said quietly, yes, that's fair, let's go. But Sabine already knew. This perfect man was starting to unravel. By the time they pulled into the lot of the Hotel Maximilian, night had fallen and silence settled between Mehmet, Thomas, and Sabine like fog over the city. Inside the hotel lobby, Mehmet's charm flickered back on like a light switch. Evening, he said to the receptionist, cheerful, composed. Could you bring up our reservation file, please? Mehmet Oskin, Executive Suite. The receptionist blinked, then scrolled, then frowned. I'm afraid this reservation was checked out earlier today, at 3:30 p.m. paid in full. Sabine's breath caught in her throat. That's impossible, she said. He was with us at the factory this afternoon. The receptionist turned the screen toward them. The name, the room, the timestamp all match. Mehmet's carefully constructed confidence shattered for just an instant. His breath hitched, his smile faltered. Must be a mistake, he said. But the air had shifted. Thomas turned toward him. Checked out, why? Silence, a fake smile, then a reflex pivot, family emergency. Sabine stared at him. You didn't mention a family emergency. She called while you were busy with Klaus, he said too quickly. I didn't want to worry you. But Thomas had already stepped between them. Herr Oskin, we've asked you for documentation, for financial clarity. You've sidestepped every direct question. I don't think I like your tone, Mehmet replied, his voice lower now. And I don't like liars, Thomas shot back. The moment cracked wide open. Mehmet took a step back, raising both hands slightly, trying to stabilize the room with the only weapon he had left, appearance. Please, Sabine, he said gently. You trust me, don't you? Sabine looked at him, the man she'd shared late-night conversations with, secrets, laughter, even a kiss. The man she'd started to believe might be part of her future. But all she saw now was an actor, and she'd been the perfect audience. No, she whispered, I don't trust you anymore. Without another word, Mehmet turned around and walked out the main entrance into the parking lot. Sabine and Thomas rushed after him, but he was gone. In the darkness, the man she thought she loved vanished, just like that. 11:30 p.m., hotel lobby. Detective Weber arrived just before midnight, coffee in hand, eyes weary and sharp. A veteran investigator wrapped in the dull armor of experience. This isn't a love story, he said after reviewing the files and seeing a copy of the bank transfer screen Sabine had printed earlier. It's a crime. He pulled a laptop from his satchel and opened an internal fraud database. Face-to-face romance scams, he explained. Rare, but rising, this guy is either a professional scammer or part of a wider ring. He clicked and scrolled. After a few keystrokes, a list of open fraud cases filled the screen. Case 1327B, Andreas Mertens, a.k.a. Mehmet Oskin /Kaitaner Muret Levens. DOB, April 28, 1988, Düsseldorf, Germany. Sabine leaned in, her heart stopped. It was him. Same face, same charisma, multiple names. He's wanted in 6 regions, Germany, Austria, Switzerland, Weber said, pointing to cases involving romance mixed with commercial scams. All the victims are women between 45 and 60, widowed, divorced, business owners. He studies them before making contact. He tailors the lie. It's personal con artistry on an executive level. Sabine pressed her knuckles to her lips. And the money, she asked, her voice raw. Gone, transferred offshore within 30 minutes of your 30,000 euros deposit, Weber answered. We tracked it to shell accounts in Cyprus and Panama. Legally reclaiming it is almost impossible, but we'll try. Thomas looked shaken but grounded. Mom, this isn't your fault. But Sabine couldn't speak. She couldn't even cry, not yet. Saturday, March 16, the aftermath. Maria arrived by afternoon. Saw the news, she said gently, stepping into Sabine's living room. The fraud blog, the LinkedIn takedown, the police notification. She knelt beside her friend and held her. You said it felt too perfect, Sabine murmured. Because it was, Maria replied. But that doesn't make you foolish, it makes you human. Sabine nodded, staring blankly ahead. 1 week later, a break in the case. Detective Weber called with news. Found him. Andreas Mertens had been arrested near the Czech border, trying to disappear through a freight company with a forged Hungarian ID. The car he used had 127,000 euros in cash on him, 12 fake passports, a white hard drive with dozens of fake identities, target profiles, and email templates. He had 6 other women lined up, the detective said. You were just the first leg of a new scam cycle. Sabine's knees weakened with the truth. She wasn't special, she was a starting point. But she was also the reason it ended. Police froze several accounts in time. 28,000 euros was recovered, about 2/3 of her loss. It came through victim compensation 6 weeks later. She didn't celebrate. Rituals of justice felt hollow, but restitution, however partial, mattered. 3 months later, the trial. The courtroom was smaller than in movies. Andreas in person looked nothing like the man from video calls. No suit, no gold cufflinks, just a shell, small, banal. When Sabine read her witness statement before the judge, her voice only wavered once. He took my money, yes, but worse, he took parts of me I didn't know I'd given away, my confidence, my ability to trust my own judgment, my belief that people still value truth above charm. Then she looked straight at Andreas. But I've taken something back too. I've taken your mask off. You won't wear it again. 6 years in prison. Fraud, identity theft, emotional extortion, financial deception. Justice as much as the law could offer it. Epilogue 1 year later. Keller Möbelwerk is thriving. It now employs 15 full-time workers. New orders keep coming. Ironically, media coverage around Sabine's case brought in an unexpected wave of local support. People wanted to stand by a woman who fought back. Thomas took on more managerial responsibilities, and trust was rebuilt between them, better, stronger, forged in fire. Klaus, ever dependable, stayed as the soul of the floor. And Sabine. She speaks at conferences now, not about business, about deception, romance, scams, trust, recovery. If I can use what happened to help someone else catch the red flags, she often says, then that pain becomes purpose. Maria is still around, still sipping coffee with arched eyebrows and hard truths. She never said, I told you so. She never needed to. And Sabine, she still logs into LinkedIn, still looks at messages, still believes love might visit again someday. But now she knows. Love never needs urgency. Trust is verified, not assumed. Charm can't replace credentials. And sometimes, the person who seems to hold the key to your future is actually just searching for a way in. As of this story's conclusion, Andreas Mertens remains in a medium-security correctional facility in Germany. Authorities estimate he defrauded over 2.3 million euros across 4 European countries. At least 23 women were identified as victims. Sabine Keller recovered a portion of her losses, but she regained far more. Her voice, her powers, and the blueprint to a life not built on fantasy, but on truth.